Hello, my friends, and I'm so excited for you to get to know today's guest, Alice Kim. Alice is amazing. Alice and I met at an event a couple months back. And as I mentioned in this episode, I actually discovered Alice through the amazing, slightly creepy, stalky energy of social media. TikTok actually introduced me to Alice's company, Perfected. And then a friend of mine, when I moved to New York, said, "Hey, you want to come to an event for my friend?" And it was Alice and it was Perfected. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I've been nerding out about them anyway and their incredible work." And then I got a chance to meet Alice. And so today you get to meet her. Alice is a fashion industry veteran with 2 decades of experience, having worked with brands including Diane von Furstenberg, Prada, Victoria's Secret, and now she's the founder of Perfected, a brand created from her own need to find clothes that fit and flatter women with double D plus cups with small to mid frame bodies. Alice is a graduate of Dartmouth College and she lives here in New York City, where I am as well. And the wonderful part is in this episode, Alice talks about the fact that she comes from an investment banking background that then went into fashion and now is in this entrepreneurial lane trying to meld all of the amazing learnings and the wisdom she's had in her career, but also these experiences that she's had in her life living and operating in this body that the world doesn't necessarily create space for honoring, as unique, as beautiful as it is, each and every one of us. If you have listened to previous episodes, we've had a couple of different conversations about us really reclaiming the power of our bodies. In particular, in this episode, I talk about the episode with Elsa Isaac, where we talk about the importance of going out in the world with this armor or this sense of confidence with your body. And rather than the armor being something that makes you suffocate or feel small or feel like the world isn't safe, it being something that can be something you can move around as yourself in, but also feel confident and strong and able to navigate kind of whatever comes your way, while also being open enough for great opportunities to come your way. So in this episode, Alice and I dive into so much of that. We also talk about what it is to be a female entrepreneur, a woman of color entrepreneur, and also a single woman as an entrepreneur, and what all the elements of those nuances of entrepreneurship look like. And then we also talk about the importance of really understanding and clarifying what it is when we are out in the world and bringing something new to the market and being responded to as though it's a niche. Market when it's not at all, and how you kind of navigate the systems of oppression that show up. We talk a little bit, not directly about white supremacy, but the white supremacy, a little bit of the patriarchy, how that shows up, and how in ways that you think it's going to show up, it might not. In that a lot of your allies might actually be men, in a brand where it's obviously not necessarily the main target. And we also talk about ageism a little bit and this belief that the kind of shiny new either products or people or leaders are the folks that deserve attention or are able to come up with new ideas. So if any of that resonates with you, I'm so excited for you to meet Alice. She has such a wonderful story, such a wonderful energy. And if you are somebody with a larger chest and a smaller frame, and you don't know about Perfected yet, I am so excited for you to get to know more about the origin story of the brand and for you to be introduced to the amazing options and offerings that are there for you, that there's a community of many more people than you probably expect. I, for one, did not know the numbers around those of us that kind of fall in this category. And so I hope you feel seen in this episode. If for your experience of finding clothing in your life, you have felt unseen or as though you had to kind of MacGyver whatever else was out there, this episode is for you. So without further ado, here is the amazing Alice Kim. Alice, I am so excited that you're here on Checkbox Other today. I just feel like I am excited for everybody listening to get to know you and to get to know all about Perfected, because I have been shouting about you and Perfected from the rooftops since even before, I don't even think I told you this. TikTok introduced me to you before my friend was like, my friend Alice has this thing. And I was like, I know who she is because TikTok introduced me. So I nerded out about you before I knew that we were one connection away. So I'm so excited because now everybody listening gets to know who you are. What I like to do is I like to hand over the microphone for you to tell what I call the Cliff Notes version of your story, the twists, the turns, the aha moments that led you to where you are today doing what you do.
Sure. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm like, when I was born, no, I'm just kidding. But so I started my career in investment banking where button downs were a requirement. So buttons were, I mean, this is, I don't even want to age myself. Anyway, we had to wear suits. So button downs and suits. So button downs were constantly popping open. And if I buy a larger size, then I would have to pay more money to either get it tailored or settle with it looking baggy, making me feel unprofessional and insecure. By the way, so for everyone listening, I guess I didn't preface it, but I'm a size 0 or 2, but I have H cups. I say double D cups because that's what people understand. But most people don't know that there are cup sizes larger than a double D. But because most brands stop at the double D or triple D cup, they don't understand. So I'm a 28 H cup. So 28 is a bandwidth of my rib cage. And the cup size is how big your chest is. They're natural. Because the number one question that I get is, are they real? And I'm like, first of all, F you, it's nobody's business whether they're real
Right.
or not. But just for the record, they are real. So I didn't even have a choice in this matter to choose my
Right.
body to be a certain way. This is God's gift, or one may call it a blessing, one may call it punishment. Growing up, it was not fun,
The
but
buttons made you feel like punishment for sure.
exactly. No,
Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, there were times when, but just to go back to 32 double D, that is the smallest bandwidth, yet largest cup that most brands carry. So I shove myself into that. Doesn't fit me properly. Obviously, that's not my size, but that's all that exists. So starting there, that is my
Yeah.
problem. But when buttons were popping open, first of all, I would feel so confident. I'm a confident person in general. So I would walk into these, and I was an analyst. That's my first job out of school.
Yeah.
Walk into these meetings so confident. I'm like, yes, I nailed it. And everyone's smiling. And then I go to the bathroom right afterwards and I look in the mirror and my button's popping open. I'm like, they were laughing at me or
Mm,
smiling at me because I'm showing them my bosoms and my
yeah.
bra, not because, and maybe the presentation was good, but it was like, and then some, here's some extra goodies.
Yeah.
So
Right.
obviously I felt embarrassed and insecure. I would always carry around safety pins or double stick
Yeah.
tape. I don't even know if double stick tape existed then. But I was so
Made
self-conscious and
it.
exactly, right? And
Yeah.
jackets, I couldn't close across my chest. So I have a narrow frame. I'm of
Mhm.
Asian descent. I think Asians are just built naturally smaller, like more narrow. But I have a bigger chest for my frame
Yeah.
proportionately. So it was just a struggle. And then fast forward, I transitioned into fashion now for over 20 years and working for some of the biggest names, I still couldn't find clothes that fit me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, DVF was a chunk of my career where I spent 6 years. Diane von Furstenberg, she's known for her wrap dresses. I'm a size 0 or 2 in her styles, yet my chest pops out. So, in an executive position, unfortunately, we don't live in a world where we can show our cleavage and our nipples and get taken seriously and promoted. So I
Right.
always have to wear camisoles underneath, which ruins
Yeah.
the look of the dress. I have to wear scarves over it just to cover, or bring it to the tailor literally to have a snap button or instead of a
Yeah.
safety pin
Yeah.
closed. So the dresses start at $345. So already from there I have to pay more money. Most people cannot afford this. So after I did my due diligence, and learning that the average bra size in the United States is a 34 double D. That is the average. So
Wow.
understanding that most women in America fall into my size range,
Yeah.
I knew I had to do something about it. And if not me, somebody else would. So why not me? I have the experience of 20 years. I am the customer myself
Yeah.
struggling with
Yeah.
these issues. So, as I was turning a big milestone age, I said, let me do it. And I worked 2 years before launch to create the
Yeah.
styles and perfect it and launch during COVID.
Yes. Heck yeah. Congratulations for that
Thank
because
you.
I
Thank
know
you.
we hopped on, we were talking about the birthing of a business baby and how much goes into that. And I think there is so much that as we talk about and we hear these founder stories that sound like, oh, magically overnight, I snapped my fingers and there it was. There is so much that goes into this. And, it's so funny as you're talking about kind of financial investment and you're talking about confidence. It's so interesting to hear because these are the things that are supposed to not show through. Like oh, okay, cool. I felt really good about that, but you're staring at my chest. And now I'm supposed to act like that's not a big deal.
Right.
And I'm now in an industry that is supposed to serve everybody's bodies, and that's not happening either. Is there something wrong or broken about the way I'm looking at the world? Or is this industry broken? And how is this industry broken for this long with, again, the population needing what this industry is not even offering? And so having all of these moments of just like, I feel like I'm just like squinting the whole time as you're saying, like thinking about like how our systems and structures set up. And again, I feel like this is big picture, what we've been dealing with the last like 5 years of people actually acknowledging that we have systems and structures that have been set up for many of us not to succeed or be served or thought of at all. But I'm so curious to hear I naturally, when I hear people's story, I'm like, I hear all the other stories that I'm hearing of that I think are so beautifully making you uniquely you. But I'd love to hear from you of like what times in your life you felt other, how you kind of navigated that feeling of not belonging. Can do one, you can do more than one. I'm always made the podcast because I love the stories. But do you mind sharing a time in your life you felt other, different, or as though you didn't belong?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in New York City, but I grew up in an area in Queens called Bayside, which is predominantly Irish and Italian. I went to Catholic school, so I was the only Asian in an entire school. So not
Mm,
only was I different looking physically, um,
yeah.
think of adolescence, your body changing. So I developed faster than all the other girls in my grade, regardless of race. So I was different and made fun of because I was the only Asian. And kids can be so cruel, right?
Right.
It's that age of like elementary, junior high school that can be so cruel. So you're different. I'm an Irish princess. I'm an Italian princess. What are you? You're ugly, is what I sort of grew up with. So insecure, but also like, why am I different? And I remember praying to God, like looking at all these like teen bot magazines, and there were no Asians represented in these magazines, by the way, right? We live in America, which is a white society. And as an adult, as I think back, I'm like, no, America, especially New York, is a melting pot, right? But anyway, that's what the magazines were. And I always prayed to God, I just want to be white, like dye my
Mhm.
hair, get color contacts. I want to be white to fit in. Right now, I'm happy that that didn't happen. But so that was the first time where I felt different, right? And ostracized. And then as my body started developing, um, Asians are known to be stick skinny, you know, quiet. And I was not a typical Asian because I started developing early. So I looked bigger than I am despite my shoulders, my weight, and my frame. When you have a larger chest, clothes hang off from where it protrudes the most. Like think of like wearing a hat, for example. If the beak, the cap is sticking out and you put cloth over it, it's it hangs from where the beak is, where the hat, right? Because that's where it protrudes. Same thing with the chest, right? So I looked bigger than I was, whether it's, my stomach or whatever it is. And if I wear my size, I'm popping out. My cleavage is showing. The
Yep.
t-shirt is pulling across my chest. And I just got used to long hair. And as you can see now, I still cover my chest with my hair just because that's what I'm used to. And if I size up, what I was saying before, even a baggy sweatshirt, then I look bigger than I am. And people would make fun of me, she's fat. And I wasn't, I was like a little twig, but because of my chest. So in those two ways, it really, I felt ostracized and it made me feel insecure.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think like I'm like giggling. I don't know if you saw me like covering my face because I'm remembering those years myself too. And that transparency of youth, but also that like judgmental trying to find where I am in the hierarchy of, the hormones of adolescence, how abrupt people are with each other, and also how vulnerable we are in those moments as our bodies are no longer feeling like they're our own and we have no control over what they're doing and where they're going. And it is really fascinating. So I remember as I'm hearing you say this, it popped in my brain there was this guy I remember in middle school in the lunch line offering me his lunch money to show him my chest. And I was like 11 or 12. And I just remember being like, again, because also a very like confident kid being like, that's stupid. Why would you do that right away? But then walking away being like, oh, I need to. And I used to wear, I was an athlete. I wore t-shirts and sweat, like,
Mhm.
but I was like, okay, how else can I disappear in my clothes? Because
Yes.
this body is doing things I don't know how to handle. And so whether I look fat or not, whether I look like I'm asking for it, one of the things I wrote here too is like if you wear
Yeah.
clothes too tight, I remember being really young and like much older men making comments in front of like my dad and being like, oh my God. There was just this feeling of it's out of control. And also, no matter what I do, I'm getting terrible reactions from people that have nothing to do with who I am and how that shapes your sense of self and sense of like safety and belonging in the world. How can I show up? And then to have it be when you're getting older, it show up in different ways, right? How you're talking about like the button down popping and being like, I'm doing the best. I've MacGyvered this thing to the
Yeah.
last to the last safety pin I have, and I've created all of these different things. And my hair is as long as it can go. How can I make it so I am also not wasting and burning my energy that I want to be using towards achieving this thing at work to covering my body up? And I feel like
Oh,
we're not given the space to acknowledge how much emotional energy and mental work is going into making it so your body fits a space appropriately so that they're paying attention to who you are and what you're doing and showing up versus what you look like. I'd love to hear your
100.
take on that.
Yeah, no, 100%. So fast forward, I spoke about elementary school and junior high school. Let's go to high school. High school, I was slut shamed, right? So just existing and wearing normal clothes, right? And I always loved clothes. People just walking down the hall, they would say slut because of the size of my chest. I'm like, I cannot control this. But as you can see, I slouched like this because then I learned to hide exactly what you said. I was trying to hide and minimize rather than, even if I just put my shoulders back and not stick my chest out, it looks as if I am because of our naturally larger chest. So it's really, and back then, people wanted to be the same, right? In the 90s heroin chic era,
I
Kate
was gonna
Moss
say
era.
Kate Moss.
And
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
she even, there's a quote, I don't even know exactly her quote. I should learn it, but it says, she said something like, I'd rather be skinny than, whatever, not eat and be skinny than to whatever it was. But it was
Yeah.
this mentality, everyone wants to be the same until recently in the past, I would say 5 years, did people celebrate differences? Are people celebrating differences and seeing that as beautiful? It wasn't for the longest time, and that's mainstream media, right? But it's, to your point, it's about minimizing. How do I once get a breast reduction until my early 30s.
Oh,
So it's crazy. And now I tell people, listen, I advocate breast reductions if you physically have an ailment or if there's physical pain involved, but no, brands, we need to do a better job to create options for different body types. We shouldn't have to change our body to fit into what mainstream says is the trend of the season, because guess what? Body types, the trends change through decades. If you look at it, think of Marilyn Monroe, right?
yeah.
Think of, like I said, 90s heroin chic. Think of where we are now, where it's the hourglass shape,
Yeah.
right? And Brazilian butt lifts are the biggest thing, but we should not listen to media and
Right.
have them dictate what an ideal body type is, because there isn't one ideal body type. And I think this is where, we need to do a better job to say, no, we're here for you. You may
Yeah.
be different and it's beautiful, and there are resources for you now.
Yes.
So,
And it's so funny because I had mentioned this briefly before we started recording, but when I came to the launch event for your new sports bra, I shared it on social media and I had so many people in my network, whether we had talked about our bodies or anything before, coming in and saying, oh my God, this is exactly why didn't this exist when we were younger? Like, being in our 30s, 40s, coming into the spot being like, oh, finally, but also I think there's a part of this, as you're saying it, is like, we didn't even have language to describe ourselves, right? As you're
that's
talking
right.
about, it only went to 32 double D, if that, because I
Yeah.
grew up in high school. One of my jobs, I worked at Victoria's Secret. And so my job was to measure people, and I'm measuring, they told you how. And I was like, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's
Yep.
5 options and this is not how you told me how to do the math, it doesn't fit. They're like, "Oh, well, just bucket it here." And the person, that those were the only accessible options. And
That's
I mean,
right.
I remember until I was 22 or 23, when I lived in Boston, there was a bra company that came in called Intimacy at the time, and it was the first
Mhm.
time I was offered other sizes than up to double D. And I was like, wait, and it was the first time I actually felt like I was able to feel held and also attractive, that I
Yes.
just trying to like cover myself, but without the clothing with even you can say, here's my size, and also without the language to be able to speak it out loud. I feel like the same kind of thing as you're talking about breast reductions, the amount of like strangers or like acquaintances or parents, friends that like didn't know me that would say that. They'd be like, "Oh, so you're gonna get a breast reduction?" And then to have the people close to you because they care about that say that to you, you're just like, that's not the only option. Like me distorting and changing my body isn't the problem here. The
That's
problem
right.
is that it's not being served by what's available and the external perception is creating this. But without the language and without the options, people only believe there are kind of two ways to live your life. And so I think
Oh,
you,
absolutely.
what you've been doing, and even just creating the conversation and then having products that are like, see, is real. You can do this. It's giving so much more permission for us to even just talk about this issue that so many of us have had in the shadows or in, whisper issues, I like to call it, or not even talk about it all, but really feeling ashamed of our bodies. And, we have this like moo energy of like when women get older, they wear these moo but now like moo can be super fashionable. But like how we can reclaim our bodies without like shaming or shedding ourselves of the identity and the power of them, because women's bodies in and of themselves are incredibly powerful, but we're constantly kind of in this battle with how can I make myself fit what you're telling me, but also how can I honor who I am and what I'm bringing to the party? Oftentimes it's how do I abandon myself in order to fit? So
That's
I'd love
right.
to, again, I think the launch event that you did, I thought did such an amazing job of creating a space for people to be able to have language to talk about it. Yes, there, but then also beyond. How have you thought about like messaging? Because I know one of the pieces of your business in entering spaces and talking about this, people get a little confused about what Perfected offers and how they're able to engage with the idea that you have larger breasted women with small frames. Here are the only types of conversations we can have, or here are the only types of products we offer. How has that worked both on the chatting with people and also the product clarity and communications on a marketing side?
Oh, it's so hard because we're embarking on a new frontier that the fashion industry for centuries have not spoken about. I don't know why, but especially in America, breasts, boobs, tits, whatever you want to call them, chest, it's taboo, which is
Yes.
so weird to me because it's a body part that every human being, animals have it too. Animals have nipples, right? Like
Yeah.
men
Right.
have a
Right.
chest. We,
Yeah.
females have chest. So why is it taboo? But it's especially taboo when it's big, right? So
Yeah.
because it's over sexualized and we're body shamed for it. So my whole goal is let's talk about it. I'm going to talk about big boobs, big boobs, big boobs and celebrate them because guess what? It took me over 30 years to celebrate my double D's. And guess what? Exactly to your point, LinkedIn, when I first said, in case you guys have been wondering what I've been up to, because I had a phenomenal career,
Yeah.
in big prestigious companies. And I said, in case you guys have been wondering what I've been up to, because I was quiet for a little bit, over a year, I
Yeah.
said, this is what I started. I started a brand called Perfected because I perfected all the tops, or you could say perfect double Ds, because I'm a 32 double D and I'm finally proud of them.
Yeah.
This is, I create sustainable clothing for women, with a double D cup all the way to an M cup. Straight sizing, because to your point, there's only two ways to live. You're either straight sizing or plus size. Meanwhile, there's so much in between, right? You don't
Yeah.
just because you fall within 0 to 16 doesn't mean our bodies are exactly the same, right?
Right.
What about boobs
Yeah.
and hips and different things? Anyway, so um, LinkedIn took my post down. So I had 40,000 views
Uh-huh.
announcing, 20 years of career, corporate work, all of that. People celebrating 40,000 views, which is a lot for me on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
especially. And they automatically took it down. We went back and forth, and it's because I used the word boobs. And I don't know if it's because I don't spend money on advertising on their platform, because guess what? There are lots of bra brands there, bikini brands there, and that show much more. And it's just crazy. Same thing with Google. Google, I had, it wasn't even an ad. It was me. It was a model wearing white, but she was a white woman. So she was, paler skinned than me, wearing a white hat, a white shirt, this shirt, a
Yeah.
white coat. So it was an all ivory look. The algorithm picked it up as nude because it was all white, that they took it down. So there's something in this tech world, whatever it is,
Huh?
that's still so like about female bodies
Yeah.
and being, it's not even naked. I don't even know how to describe it.
Right.
My clothing that it's clothing, so you don't see nipples, you don't see cleavage, but it's
Yeah.
still taken to, even the word boobs we cannot use. And then I reference, so I put it up again like a month later, and I said, this is very similar to what Dame, it's a woman's sexual um,
Oh,
sex
yeah.
toy
Yeah.
business, and they were taken down from subway ads
Yeah.
and all that. Meanwhile, we can Viagra, which talks
All
about
day.
male erectile dysfunction, is allowed to have like openly talk about it and normalized. So
Yeah.
my whole thing is, let's just first talk about it. Only when we start the conversation do we have a chance for any change. So we need to
Yeah.
talk about it. The second part is, going back to your original question, it's really hard to go into an industry, or navigate something that the fashion industry is unaware of. Although it is the majority of women have double D's and up cup, people don't know.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, this is so niche. Well, guess what? You just do a quick Google search, write in average bra size US, average woman, whatever it is, you will find
Yeah.
it. This is not something that I'm making up, right? Look up
Yeah.
average dress size. So the average woman plus size is actually 68% of the US population. Let's round that up to 70%. So what
Wow.
99% of the brands design for, because plus size is still such a huge underserved market, what fashion currently designs for is 32% of the US female population. Okay, so you fucking smart VCs investing in these fashion companies that only target a minority, like wake up, right? Plus
Right.
size is huge business, first of all. Second of all, if you look at the stats, not everybody puts in their bra size, and 80% of women are wearing the wrong bra size, but
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
about 50-50 that are A through C cup versus D cups and up. But if you include plus size, we are the majority. D cups and up majority. And guess what? Plastic surgery statistics, go to plasticsurgery.org, right? It's
Yeah.
national.
Yeah.
Breast enhancements and breast augmentation is the number one cosmetic surgery, growing double digits since 2006, which means, who do we think are getting breast augmentation, right?
Right.
Generally straight sizing, not plus size women, meaning that
Yeah.
this target demographic is ever growing. And a lot of
Right.
these women get augmentations because they want to show off their boobs, but they also don't realize their clothes will fit so differently. So you
Right.
need, and I say that there's a time and a place for everything. At church, I don't want to show my cleavage. In front of my
Right.
father, I don't want to show my cleavage. So
Yeah.
there's a time and a place. And guess what? We still live in a world, what I was saying earlier, government buildings, places of worship, where you pick up children, showing your cleavage and nipples and excessive boobage is frowned upon, and some not allowed. In
Right.
synagogues, you have to wear a scarf or a coat to
Yeah.
cover your chest, sometimes
Yeah.
even your head, right? Hair, depending on
Yeah.
which religion.
Yeah.
So this is just a part of life that we need options. And all I'm
Right.
doing, I'm not saying one is better than the other. We're just creating options. And what I say is, we at Perfected create options when you don't want your large chest to be a distraction. And all the power to you. You want to show it? Absolutely go for it. And they're like, I love showing my boobs sometimes too, but not
Yeah.
all the time. So for those few times that I don't,
Yeah.
I'm creating options.
I love that so much. And as you're like, so you're talking about kind of that more traditional background that you had and stepping into a space of entrepreneurship. but also into a lane within an industry you've been in for 20 years that has been underserved, or even just like, it feels just like ignored, shunned, pushed in the shadows, or just acted like it doesn't exist at all. What have you found to be the most valuable aspects of kind of that traditional upbringing, the part of you that was achieving in all of those board meetings and all of, that is translating so beautifully into what you do today? And how are you being able to use that wisdom and that knowledge while also being able to show up as yourself in these spaces, instead of trying to become a prototype of a different type of either entrepreneur or business person, as you're talking about things that make algorithms, and I didn't say algorithms, right? Because you think about, there's a person canceling that. For those of you that didn't see this, my mouth dropped when you said that LinkedIn canceled that.
Oh
Because
yeah.
again, I guess the benefit of a little bit of time, it was like, what, 2 years ago, that like you get a spot where you're just like, we can't say boobs. You're going to
Yep.
cancel that, but you're going to leave
Yep.
all this other stuff. And so it's a person making a choice about something that makes them uncomfortable, that
That's
we
right.
watched happen in so many different ways in the last few years, of understanding that content moderation is also policing of our language to be able to have people feel seen. So as you take all of the wisdom and the learnings of what you learned and how to navigate a traditional workplace, and then also creating something that probably makes people feel uncomfortable, they don't have the language around, and you're out there saying, okay, I want clients that are in those spaces because I was somebody that wasn't served. And here's, I mean, your button down shirt in and of itself is like a gift that we all
Yay.
wish we had, right? How do what have you brought with you, but also how do you communicate or think about bringing people that are still kind of stuck, or I don't know, sheltered, blinded by the
Hmm.
fact that these aren't things we talk about. We can't acknowledge them. And how are you using kind of the tools that you had in that space to bring people with you?
So I think, I mean, I don't regret it at all. I loved working for these big institutions. I've learned so much. I think the biggest thing is discipline. So I started my career in investment banking. I mean, the hours are grueling, but we go through analyst training program in the beginning, and you have classmates that you start with, and
Yeah.
you learn set number of skills. So even now, I can do Excel on my keyboard. I don't need a mouse. I know all the shortcuts and numbers. I think it's so important. You need to know whether you're an influencer, whether you're a model. You have to know that you're profitable, that your business is bringing in money. That's the only way you're sustainable. In
Yeah.
fashion, you have to know your margins, right? How much are you paying for it versus how much are you making? Where are the
Yeah.
costs going? So numbers is extremely important. And having my Excel skills, I mean, I can't, I'm so grateful for
Yeah.
learning that. And I would say, really, it's a discipline, right?
Yeah.
Like back then, there's hierarchy. So you're an analyst, then there's an associate, there's a vice president, MD, so on and so forth. So learning the respect, I think, is so important.
Mm.
I may sound antiquated because everyone's like, oh, all these tech companies, there's no titles, we're all flat organization. Well, I could buy into that. I could be convinced of anything, right? We could
Mhm.
change stories around and whatever, but I really think there's something to respecting elders and learning from past experiences. It doesn't have to do with age, but even if there's another startup and they could be 10 years, 20 years younger than me, but
Right.
they went through the startup
Yeah.
earlier than I have, and they have
Yeah.
learning. So it's that.
Yeah.
And camaraderie, the friendships that I've made in these organizations.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what's kept me afloat.
Yeah.
The advice that I get, it's really the network that you build. I'm so forever grateful. That's what I take with me. I'm 20 months into my business, and a lot of the opportunities that have come, it's really through my friendships and network and goodwill. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here without my past experience at
Yeah.
my previous positions,
Yeah.
and the network that I've built.
Yeah. And I feel like there's something so beautiful. Like I remember sitting at the launch party, hearing the pitch that you're giving around your business, and it not feeling like a pitch, it just feeling like, here's what we're talking about. And of course it's a no-brainer. And I know there's a lot of work to go into a wonderful pitch like that. So let me not act like that just you magically woke up one day and had it. But also I think there was a part of this that you have such a wonderful way to bridge what often people see as, in these kind of traditional spaces, and there's a lot of jargon, and there's a lot of like, you got to know the right word, you got to know the right people, with also making it super accessible for people that haven't even been near that, right? To be like, yeah, what you're doing, I want more of that. How can I get involved? And so bridging that gap from the exclusivity of a lot of these industries that have withheld and had power or prominence, and making it normal by it being through a product that's like meeting you and your body exactly where you and your body are. But also you can be an amplifier of this. You can be an influencer in your own way. You don't necessarily have to hit 10,000 followers to be someone that can go and talk about this. Like, just creating a bridge of normalizing. Yeah, maybe there's hierarchy. Yes, there are people that have known things more than you do, but to create this sense and semblance of like, you can still be here even if you are not hitting XYZ criteria, I think is a part of what's so interesting as you're talking about this. In one, we talked again before we hopped on, we were talking about the challenge of an entrepreneur trying to like realize, oh, there's so much I need to do before I go to market. There's so much I need to do that like you don't see. There's so much hustle going on behind the scenes, but I don't want, it's like a duck, right? And my feet are moving, but I'm just gliding along the top. And as you're creating this product and this company in a space where a lot of your network isn't necessarily doing this, it's such an interesting way, because you're like, I'm meeting you as the person where you are, but also here's where we shared wisdom, experience, and even, language to bring you with me. Especially if something like boobs is scary for you, here's an entry point that you can join me. I think is
Right.
such an interesting way to bring people along. Because again, when you're bringing something to light that people haven't seen before, especially when we're talking about women's bodies and the sexualization of women's bodies, it can be something that like we grew up, many of us, it being something that either like is not allowed. You could only see, like, I think of sex scenes, right? It was like you see somebody's hand on their shoulder, and that's denoting sexuality. You couldn't even see, someone in a
Mhm.
bra when we were younger, that was such a forbidden thing. So even the idea of saying boobs, it's conditioned in us that those things are off limits and not safe and not professional, when in reality, everything you just talked about in the business you're building is incredibly important for those of us in professional settings to be able to show up fully. And so I just think it's really, really powerful how you've created such an accessible way to bridge the gap that so many of us feel in being able to honor who our bodies are and how our bodies aren't being served, but how we can show up fully equipped and professional in all the spaces we're in. So I think that that's such a beautiful gift on top of like on top of the amazing products themselves, but the welcome energy that you have to like try this out and maybe not get it right. Maybe you don't know your size, because 80% of people don't. Like, you don't
Right.
have to be an expert to join us in exploring kind of how we can move this pocket of the industry into more prominence, because it's not like you're not the first person to make a shirt, but you
That's
are the
right.
first person talking about this type of stuff. And
Yes.
so oftentimes it's an all or nothing energy we get by starting something new. And you're like, yes, this is new, but here are all the ways that it can be familiar to you. I feel like you do such a wonderful job of that. And you make it fun too. It's not,
Thank
like, I feel
you.
like
Thank you.
the way that you're, even on your social media, when you're bringing stuff to the forefront, you have humor with it. And you're like, here's the data, here's the real person's story. I'll offer you all different ways, because there isn't one right way to do this, just in the same way there isn't one right way for you to look at someone's body. And so I'd love to hear from you as you're doing this. I like, the thing that keeps popping in my brain is like thinking about those kind of investor conversations, the people
Mhm.
that are like, yeah, but, or the people that say, this is so niche. Reminds me of an event I went to the other day where someone was saying, wait, creating this for women is niche? What's 50% of the population? How is that considered niche? But the
Right.
types of responses you get when
Yes.
you enter traditionally male spaces that aren't honoring this, how has that been in really just having the people that kind of hold the purse strings, having conversations with you around this being important, and you bringing the data forth? What has that been like for you as a solopreneur, stepping into those spaces and advocating for something that is seen as niche?
So I would say, oh my gosh, this is a loaded question. I'm a
I'm
very
sorry.
direct, honest person, but so I haven't really gone to fundraise that much because I haven't
Yeah.
fundraised. I'm still self-funded. I will start raising in the new year, but um, the most common, it's so funny. So we're so quick to blame men, right? And say
Oh,
that, and yes, the patriarchy is real, but the people that shame are women. women
Mm,
shame each other. So the men, if you're in the fashion industry and they're experts, they don't even question. They're like, they say, Alice, we don't even question your market size. The ones that are not in fashion and maybe they're in a different sector who are unfamiliar say, well, how big is the market? And when I tell
right,
them, they're
right,
surprised. But I'm like, I don't have to do any convincing. You just Google yourself and look for data. The data is there, right? Because I'm
right.
not making it up.
Yeah,
But the comments that I get will, it's like they immediately look at me and they try not to look down, but they do, right? Men and women, they're like, you're not that big. So the funny thing is, so I did a TikTok on this. It went viral, 7.6 million views. That's probably the one that you saw because it was reactions that I get when I tell people I started a clothing brand for women with big boobs. And the
yeah,
first thing is, oh, so you're in the bra business. They immediately think bras because boobs, and of course it's only bras. But what I say to them is, okay, you can have the most perfectly fitting bra, which I don't know a single woman that's like rants and raves like this is the best bra. But um, forgetting about that, people don't walk around in their bras. You wear
right.
clothes, like you and I are wearing shirts in
Yeah,
any setting besides in the bedroom or the beach, right?
yeah,
You're covered. So you can have the best fitting bra, but if your shirt is popping open, you'll see the best fitting bra, right?
right.
If you can't close your jacket, if the t-shirt is pulling across your chest like this, you can see that if it's baggy. So you need clothes on top of it. So it's
Right.
not just solving the issue of undergarments and intimates, it's what do you wear on the outside? And I truly believe if you look good, you feel good, right? It's
Yeah.
about
Oh,
confidence. And it's like
100%.
you put on a new shirt and if it looks good, it's like an extra swag that you have, right? Or something
Yeah.
like confidence, right? It makes you feel good. So that's one comment. So, are you in the industry of bras? Then, we spoke about market size. Then the other comment that I get is, so you're in the plus size business, which is
Mm,
another big misnomer. Just because you're a double D cup doesn't automatically mean that you're plus size. An extra
right,
large chest doesn't mean an extra large body. An extra large
right.
body, by the way, doesn't mean an extra large chest. There are plus size women who have smaller chest
Mm,
sizes that are A through C cup, right? That doesn't
yeah,
discount them of saying you're not plus size. So it's like,
right.
they're not equivalent to each other. So that's like another big misnomer. So I feel like going into this industry or embarking on my journey, there's a lot of education that
Yeah,
needs to be yeah, that needs to be done. And with investors, I think the right investor will understand. I also don't want to grow in a J stick. I mean, that would be amazing, but I'll fall quickly too, as we've seen with many other brands. And I think to your point, how you and I connected and all the people at the event
yeah,
connected, I think because we're so used to feeling similarly, whether it's body shamed, being slut shamed, feeling insecure at one point in our lives because of our body, we bond immediately and want to
yeah.
support each other. And we're like, yep, got it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Do I want to be something for everybody? I mean, of course, if you think of TAM and monetarily, but no, it's not for everybody. It's a specific solve to women with this body type who happen to be the majority of the US population. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not trying to be something for everybody. I don't think there's one single brand in this world that is
No.
something for everybody, whether it's style or budget. So,
Yeah.
I just want to be a resource for women with our body type, larger
How does
chest
it
and frame.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, how does it feel for because I'm just like, there's so much I remember again, I remember sitting in the front because I'm like front row, raise my hand. Yeah, you'll cheer, right? So we were front row, and I remember was her name Kathleen? Was the woman
Yes,
that came as
yes.
yes. And I remember her coming, first of all, before she came up, the amount of things you were saying, I was like, my head is nodding off my neck. My whole body was like, yes, where has this conversation been in my whole life? And she steps on stage and tells her story. And you can hear in her story that she's like, this is me. I'm just doing me. And then it was also like, this is me. Like as Nikki, I'm like, oh, that I know all of that feeling. And then again, like how many versions of people, like how many versions of those experiences are you witnessing and creating this and having this sense of like relief, joy, finally feeling seen from your customers? Because I can only imagine as somebody
Oh,
that like my whole body reacted to it in like I feel like younger versions of myself were cheering at that moment. Like, what does that feel like for you as a founder, as you're kind of serving a need that people have had for so long that they didn't even know there was like words or an opportunity for it to be solved?
oh my gosh, this is gonna make me cry. This is
I know, I just
this
got upset.
I
I got
know. I'm
emotional.
like, oh my God. It's the most rewarding hearing from my customers. It is what keeps me going. I would not be here without them. No, really. And I always email every single person that emails me. I'm like, I'm here to serve you. Like,
Mm,
this would not exist if it wasn't for you. You're beautiful the way you are. You deserve everything. Anything, let me know what you need. I could try to build it into my pipeline. Um, but it's really, I have women telling me that they canceled their breast reduction surgery because after they found my brand, they feel like clothes fit them. They look 10 pounds lighter, and it's not about looking skinnier. So
no,
mark my words, let's not, people try to contrive words and whatever. No, let's not mix words. It's not about looking skinnier. It's about looking your size, your
yeah.
body. Why should you look bigger than you are because clothes don't fit? Why should you pop out of clothes? No, it's fitting you, meeting you right where you are in your
Mm,
journey, your life, your body. You don't have to lose weight. You don't have to gain weight. We're going to meet you there. Right. So that's what it's about. And people, I mean, like Kathleen, I mean, she and I became friends because she was a customer and she came to my apartment door during COVID and she bought 12 more items because she loved it. Once you know your size, you'll come back knowing that there's extra room by the bust and not
yeah,
everywhere else. You could see her waist, right? We create
yeah,
that silhouette. And she said, I didn't, her biggest thing that touched me was I'm a confident person. I never hated my body until I put on clothes. Clothes
yeah,
made me hate my body. That's not okay. That means
yeah.
something is wrong with the industry and we need to fix it and stop all these diets and fads and lose weight and what have you. Exercise more. No, no, you're perfect the way you are. We are not paid to be, not everyone is an athlete, not everyone, so as brands, let's meet you, real people, real women where they are
Yeah,
to
that's
make them feel
beautiful.
confident. So that's sort of where it is. And, she's like, I'm neither here nor there. She's like, I'm a size 12 to 14. And in any given year, my body fluctuates as we all do. Our bodies as women fluctuates throughout the month, whether we have our period or not. And she said she's too big for standard straight size, but she's too small for plus size. So she really doesn't fit. And
Yeah,
the fact that her chest is larger, she's plus size, right? But
yeah,
because i- her body isn't, and she's like, until I found Perfected, and it became, she's one of my loyal customers now, friends. I'm like, be a brand ambassador, which she
yeah.
is.
She's
So,
amazing.
yeah, it's that. Like, I want to be the voice of the underserved.
Yeah,
I want to, you are seen and heard. Everybody, not just female, but men, everybody, trans, everyone deserves to feel seen and heard.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's, if I can do that for one person, two people, my mission is accomplished. I'm not stopping there.
yeah.
But yeah, no, but that's really what it is. Like, that keeps, am I making the most money of my life? No, in full transparency. Entrepreneurship is hard, especially if you're not funded. Um, and it's ups and downs, but my customers hearing their stories when they share pictures, right? This woman emailed me and she's like, I don't feel comfortable sharing a picture, but she's like, I'm 71 years old and I feel confident in the clothes I wear. Thank you. And I'm sad that she had to wait until she was 71, right?
Right.
Because now I want to reach the younger generation, Gen Z. Like,
Yeah,
feel confident where you are and let's keep growing for as long
yeah.
as you live, hopefully, right? But if I can change and make somebody feel better about their bodies and confident, like, that is the most rewarding. So Thank you to everyone listening. Thank you to all of my customers who have supported. Like, we are here for you,
Uh,
and I'm only here because of you.
Oh, I love this so much. We had an episode recently with her name's Elsa Isaac. She's a stylist, and we were talking about many different things of what you're choosing to put on your body, whether it's your clothes or how you style your hair or your makeup, however you're showing up in the outside world, it being armor that can either be something that allows you to feel confident and structured, or it can kind of swallow you whole a little bit.
Right.
And I think I'm thinking of myself in I think it was like 2012, 2013. I remember going to a therapist, and I grew up playing sports. I played soccer in college, and I was out. I mean, I was out of school for probably 5 or 6 years at that point, but it was the first time that I started gaining weight and didn't care, because what I started noticing was people reacted to my body differently because I wasn't as voluptuously out there. I wasn't getting catcalled in the same way. And so it was really fascinating, because did I want to be gaining weight? Not necessarily. Did I feel less strong? For sure. I felt weaker. I felt whatever, but I was like, but the relief of not constantly being on like head swivel, that people are going to be, consuming my body like it's a meat market, was a really interesting way of navigating the world. And that then spirals into just disappearing in your clothes.
Yeah.
And so it's really funny, because coming out of COVID, one of the things Elsa and I also spoke about was like, we all have this opportunity of like reemergence, right? Like we're
Mhm.
getting to move from behind the screen to like be in presence with people, whether they're people you know or new people. And you get to choose the clothes you're going to wear, because so often many of us were in clothes that the workplace, at least the bottom half of us, we'd never be able to wear at work. And so we've had this whole different relationship to our wardrobe, and then being like, all right, I'm a different person than I was 2 years ago. How
Mhm.
do I want that to reflect in my clothes? And I feel like Perfected being here right now is such a wonderful thing, because I think so many of us have had to grapple with how we feel about our bodies in the last few years. One, how is our body doing, and how safe is it for us to breathe? But also like being in community with your body in a way that we probably haven't had to be in many ways. You're out in the world and getting distracted by a whole bunch of other things. You're paying such close attention to, is my body okay? What does my body need? And so as people are stepping into, how do I want to show up in the world, and how do I re-equip my closet? One of my friends was here this weekend, and she's like, I have stuff in my closet, but she brought a suitcase. She goes, if everything in my closet got ruined, this is what I wear anyway. She's like, I need new clothes, but I don't even know what those things are right now. So as people are thinking about, how do I step out into this next iteration of myself? How do you kind of encourage them to come to, or to explore Perfected? Because as you're saying, once you find your size, once you find the products that work for you, it can be like Kathleen, you're like, I want one in every size, one in every color, and one in every style. Hit me up with it. How do you think about people that are saying, listening to this, going, oh my goodness, yes, where do I start? How do you recommend for me to do that?
Well, if you think about it, thinking of your closet, as you were saying, people wear 20% of their clothes. Let's say they have so many styles, 100% is your entire closet.
Yeah,
Everyone has their go-tos, right? Which is
yeah,
probably 20% or less.
yeah,
So we don't chase the trend. They're your closet staples. Everything's black, white, and gray. That's versatile, machine washable, but the highest quality cotton. So Supima, Pima, which means it withstands more washes, it doesn't pill. And they all have sleeve details. So the muscle tee that I'm wearing right now has rolled sleeves, so it's tacked so it doesn't fall down. I have lots of puff sleeves, so there are sleeve details that can be worn dressed up. You can wear it under a suit jacket by itself with slacks. I wear some of my sweatshirts with sequin skirts to New Year's party last year. But I can also wear it to the gym. Best thing, it's machine washable. All of our clothing is made in the United States. So I think of it more as timeless pieces that are versatile, and your closet staples. That's really where you start. Our button downs are patented with a hidden button. So I say bye bye safety pins, double stick tape, bringing it
yeah.
to the tailor. So it's on the inside. You don't see the button. Same thing with our new sports bra. There's a patented magnetic closure that makes it easier. So our goal is to make your life easier. We have so many cares in the world: children, family, dating, jobs. The last thing you should really worry and stress about is, what are you wearing? Like, think of those days when you open your closet, you're like, oh, I have all this clothes, but nothing to wear. I always say that. and I
every
have
day.
one rack.
Yeah.
Exactly. I have one rack of my clothes. I'm like, oh my God, I know this fits. I know it looks good. What can I pair at the bottom, in the bottom, right? But now people are asking for dresses and all of that, but you just need your staples, and you could zhuzh it up. Like if I wear red lipstick, makeup, right, and a statement necklace, that may instantly makes this outfit dressier, right?
Yeah.
So you can accessorize,
Yeah.
but I think less is more. Your closets, these are your closet staples. So I think you start there, revamp that, and the Marie Kondo method, right?
Yeah.
What no longer serves you and brings you joy, and you haven't worn it in 2 years, goodbye the giveaway pile, which,
Yeah.
listen, I have to do myself too.
Like
But
I'm saying,
the
I'm not perfect. Yeah.
I know, but that's really what it is. And I'm doing this fun contest right now. It's called the Bra Graveyard Challenge. So until I was refit myself, and I'm a 28H cup, but
Mhm.
there's something called sister sizing. And I've been wearing 32 double Ds, and someone, a bra expert came and she was like, Alice, do you see? She's like, your nipples are about to pop out. She's like,
Right.
the double D barely covers you. And by the way, the strap is like sitting high on the back because it's too
Yeah.
big, it's too
Yeah.
loose. But I didn't know better. So
Yeah.
once I put my correct size on, which is very hard to find, but once I did, guess what? My boobs felt lifted up higher,
Oh, yeah.
and they looked quote unquote smaller because there was no spillage. It
Yeah.
was covering. So having the right fit really helps. And what I say is, I understand my clothing is expensive. It's 85 to $175. Not everyone can afford it. Even if you go to H&M, and not that I'm promoting fast fashion because
Yeah.
I'm slow fashion, but you can buy something for $5, $10, bring it to the tailor. It's worth the investment because once they tailor it, it fits you like a glove and makes it look like $1 million. So
Mhm.
listen, if that's all you can do, everyone is at different stages of their lives. I get it. Um,
Yeah.
there are different ways, but having good fitting clothes, or fit clothes that fit your body,
Yeah.
really makes a difference on how polished you look. And like I said, you don't need hundreds, right? You
Right.
just need a handful of staples. So if you look at our capsule collection, we have one tank top, one muscle tee, right? The tank top I consider muscle tee. We
Yeah.
have two t-shirts, short sleeve t-shirts. One's a scoop neck, one's a V-neck. We have
Mhm.
a short sleeve button down, a long sleeve button down, puff sleeves and not, and then a hooded sweatshirt. And we have two short sleeve sweatshirts too, with a hood and without a hood. So basics, that's all you need in your closet for rotation.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it also is promoting that creative expression that so many of us are like, by the time we just finally MacGyver whatever we're wearing,
Yes.
we don't have the energy to add to, or we're afraid that we'll bring attention to the one thing we were just trying to hide. And so the fact that all that energy, that if you've been so used to doing that, can now be used to celebrate your individuality on top of all
And
this
free
wonderful.
up your time.
Yes, yes, and I think there is a part of like, when someone walks in a room. I have a bunch of clients that like were re-entering the workplace after either layoff or maternity leave or whatever, and we're like, I gave myself permission to buy new clothes, and I'm walking in the office, and the people are reacting to like, my clothes are my clothes. Yeah, you can buy them here, but what they're reacting to is the swagger I'm walking in the room with, and they're
Yes.
channeling it through the clothes. But like, it's me being able to show up as a version of myself that feels fully myself, feels full of energy, feels like I'm happy to magnetize whatever type of stuff you're bringing here, versus please don't look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me, is a whole different level of just even entering a room, whether that be work, as you're talking about, whether that be dating, whether that be relationships with your family that you're trying to navigate. It really has such a huge impact. The last thing I want to make sure we talk
Yeah.
about, because I feel like we talked about this before we hopped on, and I think is so important, is talking about being a single founder, being somebody that is stepping into this space that is like, I'm bootstrapping this, and it's me, myself, and I that are making sure that this works in the way that it does. And personally for me, in my journey, I feel like I've met so many women stepping into entrepreneurship. Especially, 2016 was when I started. 2016, 2017, 2018, I think, was the American Express came out with a state of entrepreneurship, and they were saying that women are opening many more small businesses, and are stepping into the entrepreneurial shoes more than ever before, definitely proportionally more than men were. And also, I found myself being like one of the only single people that was doing this, and also one of the only single people that was doing this without a co-founder. So
Mhm.
what has that experience been like for you as you're stepping into this entrepreneurial journey with this wonderful network, as you talked about from kind of the traditional spaces you came from, and also building such a wonderful connection with your customers, clients? How do you navigate the realities of what it is to be a kind of single solo founder?
Oh my gosh, I am not the right person to ask because I don't have a work-life
Sure.
balance. As a
Yes.
solo founder, I live and breathe it. There's no vacation. Like I wake up thinking about work. I go to sleep thinking about work, even, in social settings. So it's like I'm always thinking about work. So balance is really, really hard. So I'm not the best person to give advice for that. But
Yeah.
I will say it's a really hard journey. But what I learned when I was at DBF, Diane von Furstenberg, one of her mantras, she's like, fear is not an option. And that's
Mhm.
exactly right. And I always say, you know what, fail fast, pivot quickly. If I don't try, how would I know if it's going to work or not? And I have to believe in myself. And it's hard. It's a lonely journey. Even when I celebrated the billboard in Times Square,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I have my paid employee, but I'm like, I don't have a husband or I have family, but my parents, I'm not bringing them in the middle of the night. They're 70 something years old with all this, bad stuff going on outside. My sister has 2 kids. It was that, right? And I don't have a husband or a wife or a significant other to fall back on to say, hey, if this doesn't work, I have your funds or your second job or whatever it is. So it's really,
Even
really
your
hard.
listening ear, right? Even just like your head on the pillow next to me to be able like, this was a really hard day. Like that's
I
another part
know.
of this too. Yeah.
Yes, yes, but I don't have that, right? So
Yeah.
it's really
Me neither. Yeah.
hard, but I will say to anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, have conviction in and make sure this is something that you're basically married to your job, that you truly believe in, you're willing to give it your all. Um, because it's a long road. There's no such thing as overnight success. And it's really important to have other founders in the same boat as you to support. Like Nikki, I know like you have been my biggest supporter. Like even just sending me a DM to say, keep going, you're doing like like opportunities, right? Supporting each other, just showing up to events, just small words, like I hold on to that dearly. And like I
Yeah.
said, my customers have become my friends because we're on the same journey. We understand the same struggles. It's how do we support each other? It's not just about making money, but it's really
Right.
building a community, and friends go and, come and go throughout lives, right? And
Yeah. For sure.
the ones that, yeah, stick to, and it'll always happen because I'm single. I'm friends with my going out friends are single. However, like my best friends have families, right? But I see them less frequently. So it's just a journey. It's hard. It's a lonely journey. But if
Yeah.
you believe and you work hard, I truly believe that it'll pay off.
Yeah, and I think there's something so powerful about it's funny because you're like, I go to bed thinking about this, I wake up thinking about this. I had a friend here this weekend and I was like, these were the first like 3 days that I'm not like, maybe I'm doing other things, but work is dictating how long I'm doing them. And it was really interesting because it was so beautiful to give that gift back to myself. But I was like, wow, I am my boss. I have the permission to do this. I try to do it, but it is really when you're so passionate about something, when you have, I think you're talking about, I had a great career. That's also mine. Like on paper,
Mhm.
people were like, what are you doing? Why did you leave what you were doing? I'm like, because this matters more. There's something much bigger here
Yes.
that I need to be putting my energy towards. To me, that's at least Nikki personally, my currency is around time and energy. Like if I'm putting my time somewhere and my energy somewhere and it's just draining it and I feel like I'm losing both, then what's happening? Why am I doing this? I have very finite amount of both. How can I learn, stretch, mold this so it is in alignment with where I want to be exerting my energy during the day? And again, as an entrepreneur, you're not doing things you love all the time. Oftentimes,
Right.
especially in the beginning, you're doing things you hate and you wish someone else could do, or you're doing things that you're like, I spent so much time doing this, and it, like you were saying, fail fast. I spent so much time doing this and it didn't matter at all. Okay,
I
great. How can
know.
I not make
Oh,
myself feel like I wasted 6 months doing that? Or whatever, however long it is. Because if you're doing it fast, maybe it's not 6 months. But like giving that self relationship the love that it deserves, because you are you are your partner in that journey too. And it can be really challenging to like take care. And I know self-care is something we say all the time, but really giving yourself that grace and compassion internally, that like this is a hard thing and you're doing something really challenging. And also to be leaving something behind that's like so
Mhm.
certain to do this, there is some driving factor within you, which I also think is why, as you're talking about your customers being so close to you, like they are attracted to what you're doing because they also have the same values around things. And so it's kind of like when you meet friends doing shared experiences or being in the same place, having this shared drumbeat of passion and value is something that will naturally connect you with people, which is so beautiful. The other piece that I want to talk to, and I don't know, we didn't really talk about this, but is being a founder and being a female founder and being a woman of color female founder, and then people thinking that you are much younger than you are or less experienced than you are. I don't know if that's something that's happened to you, but I am constantly misidentified age wise. And again, the energy I bring to a room, I'm like, hi. Everyone's like, oh my God, you're so young doing this. I'm like, I've got some experience. I don't know what you think, but there's a whole lot of external assumptions of who we are and how we occupy space, the knowledge we have, the experience we have, and the clout we're allowed to have. I wonder what that experience has been for you with all of those kind of, again, people, I'm thinking of people looking at your breast, the same experience of them like looking at you to try to size you up based on what you're doing. Have any of those assumptions impacted either your interactions with people or the way you think about, is this, how am I showing up as an entrepreneur that they're doing that? How has that, any of that stuff kind of shown up for you?
Oh my gosh, Nikki, are we twins? Like literally, you're right. Like we did not even rehearse this part. I was like, wait, what? So this is something that I actually talk about frequently because I struggle with it my entire life. Because I look younger than my age, I feel like I have to validate. It's so funny. So even on TikTok, so when I went viral and I have, a couple of other videos and people said, this must be a high school project or a a school. Sorry, they didn't say specify high school. They said, this must be a school project. I'm like, okay, at 42 years old, if I'm still in school, like God bless. I mean,
Okay,
what am I doing
love it.
wrong? But
Yeah.
anyway, and there was a trend that said if you're over 30 and blah blah blah, I forgot. So I actually did that and wrote my age, and people were like, no, you're the same age as my mom. And granted, TikTok is much younger audience, but it was
Right, right,
so
right.
funny. I'm like, no, this is so oftentimes, like even when I do go into these investor meetings or meetings, period, they're like, oh, couple of things. They're like, boo hoo, you're skinny with big boobs. Like, is that really a problem? Like, it really
Yes.
is. And
Yeah.
it's because you don't understand. And now that's the ideal body, but it wasn't for a long time, as we discussed before. So that's bad, but it's also like, oh, it's like some 20-year-old that wants to start a fashion brand. And I'm like, actually, I've been an executive for 20 years at these Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies. So I always feel like I have to say I have 20 years of experience, right? Not that number says that you were successful or not. And obviously there are different, data points that I can bring to the table, but I always feel like I have to prove myself that way because I look much younger than I am. And unfortunately, this year I started getting white hair because of all this entrepreneurial stress, which I'm not happy about. I'm like, can I stay young forever? But yes, it's something that I face on a daily basis, having to prove myself. Um,
Yeah.
so not only as a female, like even in investment banking, I felt like I had to prove myself even more than the men who can shoot the shit and go to, whatever. Um, together. But yeah, as an entrepreneur, it's like, oh, you're another fashion brand. And I'm like, no, no, I'm not. My daddy is not
Yeah.
funding it, nor is my husband. Like, this is something I truly believe in. Um, it's a struggle. Yeah, it's a constant struggle. And I wish it wasn't the case, but it is.
Yeah.
And I think there are different ways that I've learned to, pivot the conversation, but just to say to your point, I am experienced, right? I do
Yeah.
have the knowledge bringing forth to, this endeavor.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's hard.
It's so interesting too, because I think this is a part of the importance of representation, especially when you have very specific leadership prototypes that you feel
Mhm.
like you understand what age looks like across, especially if it's white and masculine. We have like ideas of what a leader is supposed to look like. But when you have women, and especially women of color, we don't always age in the same way that white folks age. And so there is an assumption that you can place me based on what you're seeing. You can infantilize me based on what you believe. You can
Mhm.
think that I'm just like, oh, look at this little hobby you've got going on. And it's like,
Yes.
were we just not talking about every moment, even my dreams are dedicated? This isn't a hobby. This is what I'm betting the house on. Like, come on
Yes.
now. And it is a really interesting experience because even this weekend, I was not working this weekend. I was at my
Yay.
cousin's birthday, and she is 5 years younger than me, but then had friends that were younger than her that were there. And we're talking, and this guy made a comment about something that I was like, oh my God, I'm way older than you think I am. And I looked at him and I said, what, how old? Like, what do you, and he's like, oh, I know how old you are. And I was like, but how? Like, what? And he
Mhm.
was just like, I don't know. And I told him, I'm 37. I just turned 37. I'm very bad at numbers. It's like, I'm 37. And he's like, no, you're not. And I was like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've been here for every day of that, but yeah. And he was like, I think you look like you're 25. I'm like, I don't know about, I
Mhm.
mean, but it was such an interesting thing because there was never a conversation about it, but he made a whole lot of assumptions, even in the
Yes.
topics of conversation and the viability of what I was saying and the experience that I would have had to say the things I said that made it so he like kind of, and it wasn't bad, but he kind of just
Mhm.
like poo-pooed, oh, look at that young person. She's younger than, I was like, it would have been a year or so younger than him. Oh, she has the same experience. I'm like, no, I've got over a decade more than what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, there's a whole bunch of other things, but those assumptions nullify that hard work, that wisdom that you've
Right.
accumulated over time. The ability for you to step into these spaces and be able to answer these questions is not like I'm just, faking it till I make it. Like I know what I'm talking about.
That's
I've
right.
got receipts.
Yes.
I've got receipts as long as a CVS receipt to share with you. Like there is this element of the importance of representation, of seeing more people that are older looking younger that have you questioning the assumptions you're making versus entering rooms. And I think, and I don't know if this is what you meant by, investors, but also like networking in and of itself.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
remember when I first started 6 years ago, talking with a lot of women, and a lot of women were probably like 10 years older than I am. But a lot of me growing up, I was around people that were 10 or 15 years younger for most of my
Mhm.
life. A lot of my friends are older than I am. So to me, doesn't faze me. But I had all these women being like, oh, that would be so sweet if you had experience. And I'm like, but I did. And
Mhm.
they thought I was even younger than I was. And even when I told them, it was like visually or whatever assumption they made in the
Yes.
first part, they couldn't bring the actual details with them. I'm like,
Yes.
here is my resume, my LinkedIn, here's where I worked, here's pictures. Like,
Mhm.
how much evidence can I show you? And it was still like, no, I still see you as that young girl. I'm
Right.
like, okay, but does that mean you're not letting me in a room because you think it's like X age and older that's allowed to be seen as a leader? Because I'm doing all of those things. And so it
Right.
really is so important. I think the representation part, I think you're talking about the scripts that you have to be able to like prove it quickly without making a big long thing is so important. But I think the more of us that get to be together talking about it and
Yes.
seeing that I'm not the outlier is so
Mhm.
powerful too.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think society is getting better about it because I think that's also old school mentality about like the whole hierarchy thing. Because now I'm like, you know what, social media, for example, is all of marketing right now, right? And who knows it better? It's the younger generation knows it better than us. Or
Yeah,
people, I mean, my bosses, like
yeah,
I don't know that they know Instagram and TikTok better than the young folks. So I'd
right.
rather work with the young folks
Yeah.
they're more experienced in that way. So I think it's a shift in mentality, but I mean, yeah, I think we just have to keep talking about it to open people's minds and understanding that I don't know if this was what you were getting at, but it's the old school mentality, but it's also like when people made these comments, were they men or women to you? I'm just so curious.
Both, both. It
Yeah.
depends on it, but I will say there's a different flavor. So
Yes.
there's kind of this paternal flavor for men,
Yes.
Like, oh, sweetheart, that's a nice idea. And also because, I'm a women's leadership coach and I do work in DEI, there's a little bit of protection, like
Hmm.
they will not replace us, even though if that's not really what they mean, but there's a little bit of a threat energy. So sometimes that becomes like the infantilizing, make you smaller, make you safer. And then with women, there is, and I don't know if this is what you, I could probably talk about this for an hour. There is a little bit of, uh, like a you're a younger, better version. Like if people marry, like a guy
Yes.
divorces his older wife for a younger
Yes.
version, like a newer
Yes.
model. That's what I mean. So there was a lot of like tension that I could feel, and I was like, I'm
Same.
not trying to. So I guess it's similar, the kind of
Yes.
replace you energy. I'm not
No,
trying to do it.
and it's not competition, right? I think that's what women need to understand. It's not
Yeah,
competition, but I think it also stems from there's only one spot at the table. So everyone, it's like, who's getting that spot? So maybe that's that feeling, which should no longer be.
yeah,
But yes, I mean, I completely agree. The people that bet on me, besides my friends or women that understand this struggle that I'm trying to solve, they're men. They're men that support it. They're like, we understand how big the market is.
yeah,
We see this. Like, how can we be helpful? And I'm
yeah.
so grateful because I truly believe in allies. And the only way to get ahead is to have allyship. The people that have a voice already need to
Yeah.
amplify, right? It's not us as minorities like amplifying each other because we can do that until we're green in the face, but blue in the face. What's the saying? Whatever the saying is, blue in
Whatever
the
color.
face. Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever color.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
um, but you really need mainstream and the people that are in positions of power to celebrate. Like I, as a brand, don't only want to be celebrated in the month of May, which is Asian Heritage Month, right? I
Right,
need to be celebrated throughout the year, right? Same thing with supporting Black founders. It's not only during Black Heritage Month, right? We need to celebrate each other outside of the one holiday or month, right? And how do we do that and amplify each other's voices throughout the year? So I truly believe in allyship. And yeah, it's just, but it starts from here. It's sharing these stories and conversations. So thank you,
and making
Nikki.
it safe and making it
Yes,
safe to do it. If
yes,
you don't know the right words or you're not necessarily included in it, that it's not you can be part of it. You don't just if you're not the main character doesn't mean you're not allowed. And so yeah, I
that's
think
right.
there's so much power in that. And it's so funny as you're saying this, I'm like, your product is for like you're not saying like you have to be this identity to be able
Yeah.
to be here. And
Oh,
it's really
no.
fascinating. Sometimes we filter it through the founder of who belongs in this space versus you being like, no, no, no. I have a very clear map of my target. Do you fit in here? Also, you probably know one or two people, if not many more, that are here. So if you want to amplify that to them, that'd be great. So I love this so much. All right, we could talk forever.
I know.
I feel like we're gonna have to. But where and how can people find you, connect with you? What's your? I mean, I heard you saying, I want to know what's going on. Email me. But what's the best way for people to connect with you?
So Instagram at perfected. So PER perfect DD. There's no E between the T and the D. So perfect DD is our Instagram handle, or info at perfected.com, are probably the two best ways, but would love to hear your stories, share pictures. And yeah, it's a community. Oh my gosh, as I
Yes,
just
you,
rip
you got
my
excited.
earpiece
That's
off.
all right.
Yes.
It's like Mariah Carey does that sometimes. It's fine. Even the pros do that. Well,
Yeah.
I am so grateful you were here. We talked about some stuff that I feel like I wanted to talk about in life so often. So I'm so glad we like scratched the surface here, and I'm excited to have more conversations. For those of you that are listening to this that want to talk more about this stuff, like reach out. This is what we're talking about right now. If you're feeling this and you felt like you're the only one, like that's where we are in this world right now. So often we're realizing those things that we think are individual issues or collective issues. And the best part of this is to be able to have a forum to be able to process it. We are collective connected beings. And so, Alice, thank you so much for joining today. I'm so excited for everyone to hear this.
Yay. Thanks, Nikki. And I want everyone to hear that they're not alone. There's someone else here for you, and you're not alone. You're seen and you're heard and you're important. So feel
Heck
valued.
yeah.
Thank you,
I
Nikki.
mean, period at the end of the sentence right there.
You are valued. I appreciate you.
So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. As you heard, Alice has a bunch of ways for you to connect with her. If you have questions or you haven't been able to find her or you just want to kind of chat with us about it, feel free to reach out. We're at Nikki Innocent on all social media. You can go to nikkiinnocent.com/podcast, and there is a button there for you to get in contact with us. I really hope that if this conversation resonated with you and these products feel like they might be up your alley, check them out. Get to know the brand, get to know Alice a little bit more, and feel free to share your story. As I mentioned in the episode, there were so many people that when I shared that I went to this event and what Perfected, the brand is all about, felt like, oh my God, I didn't know that this was a place we could talk about these things. And so, so often just having a space to be able to talk about things that you felt like you were the only one is so important. Obviously, why I created the podcast is around that mentality. But if you're feeling that right now, know that there are places and people that want to hear your story. So I hope that this episode resonated wonderfully with you. I cannot wait to catch you on the next episode.